Hey there, so that was the first example from this book, Guitar Comping by Barry Galbraith. Galbraith, not sure how to pronounce his name. And he's got a whole bunch of books, and this is one of his books that I just got, Guitar Comping, and it's not really a method book. I was just playing along there with the first example. So basically it's a bunch of etudes or examples on how you can comp over standards. So the tunes that he covers are, that was Shiny Stockings, right? And then Gone with the Wind, Out of Nowhere, You Stepped Out of a Dream, I Got Rhythm. Always good to work on rhythm, comping. I Got Rhythm, Nardis, and a few others. So it's a really good source for if you want to work on your comping. Some people might think, well, this is a little bit old-fashioned, right? It's the Abersold publishing company and all that. But I think this is really good stuff. And I'm going to show you how I work with this stuff. As always, when I find a new book, new material, I try to find a way to incorporate it into my own practicing and into my own playing. So I'll show you how I do that. Okay, so I bring out my iReal book and Shiny Stockings. I set it to a medium tempo, 110, and I bring down the piano so I don't have the piano in the play along. And then I'll, first of all, let's just play the melody. So something is missing, right? The chords. Well, I'm just gonna add some chords. So this is a classic swing tune, right? Like the Lindy Hop dancers loved this tune. So it's a big band kind of rhythmic swing feel. Okay, so I'll bring up again the first example of Shiny Stockings. It just calls it Shiny. So this, I'll play the first page for you here with the backing track and you'll hear what that sounds like. Okay, then there's another page. We'll look at the first page. So first off, G minor 7 to C7, or G minor 9 to C13. So I'm playing a B flat major 7 closed position. So I'm not playing the root because we don't need to. This is what's often referred to as piano voicings. So it's a B flat major 7 to a B flat major 7 flat 5, right? It creates those two chords. Well, that means that you can, any inversions of those chords you can use. Some work better than others. So this is a closed. And then there's this Charleston rhythm. F major 9. Then there's a little bit more of a fancy voicing for the B flat 13 sharp 11. So it's a C triad over A flat. Again, not playing the bass note. This is also A flat major 7 sharp 5. So it's a superimposed chord, right? So again, notice that there's a little melody there, you know, so we wouldn't necessarily normally think of doing that, but a piano player might do that just as a little embellishment, right? So we're thinking like a piano player here. And sometimes he'll play the bass notes, sometimes we don't play the bass notes. Okay, so you often hear that when you're learning how to play jazz and comps, like don't play the bass notes, the bass players hate that. You can play the bass notes, it's totally fine, but don't do it all the time and don't get in the way of what the bass player is doing. So in the beginning there, the bass player is playing some kind of walking, you're just going. So we want to consider, are we strumming it? Or are you plucking the chord? Very different sounds. I do a little bit of both, right? I was watching this video with Mike Marino, who I think is a really great comper, or he's a great guitar player in any regard, but he talks about comping, he talks about that he likes to grab the chords like that, which gives a very punchy rhythmic effect, right? So there's nothing really fancy going on here. We're not doing anything super advanced. We're just playing a Charleston rhythm, the very generic voicings, a little bit of variation. A minor, G sharp diminished, and then the G minor approaches from above, which is kind of what the melody is doing. That's why this is a good tune to work on comping. Then a G minor 7 is a B flat triad, right? Over G. Again, if we forget the bass note, we have this triad. That means we can use the inversions. And then the chromatic approach. So he does a lot of this. The next chord is C13. Then A minor 7 to D13. Then B minor to E13. So this is a little bit different. They're all kind of B minor, E13 chords, but a little bit of movement there. A6. there's a 2-5 back to G minor. So the top note is like a little melody. The 11th go down to the 3rd, the minor 3rd. Then he plays a little bit different. Instead of... And you don't have to play, you know, the same Charleston rhythm every time. Like, sometimes you can go an upbeat. So what we're looking for here is a good swing feel. So when I get comfortable playing this with my backing track, I'll take a metronome and set it to on 2 and 4. Maybe a little bit faster. The bass walking here, or the drums. Can you hear the bass walking, or imagine it? Okay, so sometimes there's a bass notes, it gives a little bit of punch to it. You can totally add bass notes as a rhythmic effect, just like you can add various little small melodies. Okay, and then sometimes he'll play just 2 notes. I love that. It's something I see Peter Bernstein do. Like, instead of a whole chord, just play 2 notes. It's a great... it leaves something for the listener to imagine, right? So I love that. Then you might want to change things up once you get more comfortable. You can start to create your own variations and all that. But what I want to get to next, which is how I use this book, is soloing and throwing in chords when you're soloing. Something that doesn't come natural for us guitar players, I don't think. But for a piano player, it's a no-brainer to do it, because they have one hand available to do that, play lines, and then just chords with the other hand. We don't play like that. Plus, we probably come from a rock background where you're soloing, you're not playing chords. But we can kind of create the illusion of a piano. So we have to separate the idea of playing a melody note and throwing a chord under that note. That's really great if you can do that, but I'm talking about playing when you're not soloing, so in the spaces. That's why it's good to have it laid out like this, because there's some space here, here and there, and you can kind of decide that, like, oh, these 2 bars here I'm gonna solo. I'm not gonna play these chords. Forget these chords. I'm gonna solo there, and then I'm gonna start playing these chords again here. You know what I mean? And when you're soloing, it's not gonna be anything fancy or advanced or impressive. I'm just gonna play something in the same kind of floating swing, something that just feels good and hopefully and sounds good, but I'm not gonna try to impress anybody with some arpeggios or diatonic crazy patterns or substitutions. Just gonna play something that, you know, imagine you're playing on a gig, the bass player is walking, maybe there's drummer and everybody's kind of happy and people are dancing even, and you're soloing more from a groove and swing kind of perspective rather than you know, here's my latest Kurt Rosenwinkel arpeggio that I'm gonna throw in. You know what I mean? So I'll try to demonstrate what I mean. Back to the chords, maybe some triads. So I don't really care if this is maybe boring to the listener or whatever. We're just kind of jamming. So I'll do it also with metronome and 2 and 4. So imagine that you can hear kind of the tune go by, right? So now I've left the, oh sorry, now I've left the page pretty much. So you can decide to stick to it more or less. You can decide I'm gonna solo over these bars, and then I'm gonna go back to the chords, and then, or you can, if you get more comfortable, you can kind of leave the page. So you can decide to stick to the page more or less depending on how comfortable you are doing this. Once you get a little bit more comfortable, you can kind of forget about the page and just start playing what you hear, right? But the idea here is that you're getting into the habit of throwing in little chords. And those chords can't be super advanced, polyrhythmic, polyharmonic, superimposed, 13 reharm, blah, blah, blah. It's very generic and it's straightforward the way these chords are, right? So a lot of people, they see someone like Mike Marino, there's a couple of videos where he's playing with a sax player, and then he's also playing just by himself, and a lot of people get blown away by his comping, and they're thinking that, oh my god, there's all this complex stuff that he's doing, or someone like Kurt Rosenwinkel or whatever. And yes, they are doing a little bit of reharm every now and then, and there is some complex chord substitutions, but most of the time, I think, from what I can hear and when I'm trying to analyze it, it's not that complicated. It's not that different from this, actually. It's maybe how they play it and the sound they're using. They have more modern sounds, those guys, right? And there is, again, there's a little bit of more. So jazz is something that has progressed, right? So after this kind of style, there's more stuff that has been added to it, reharm techniques and stuff like that. But this is a good foundation, because if you can do this, well, then you can just add that stuff to this. If you know some more advanced voicings and voicing techniques or rhythmic techniques, you can just add that to this. But if you can't do this, what I just kind of, if you can't play a very simple swing tune and just and make it swing like that and just play those little chords without thinking, then you're maybe you should work on that instead of working on the next extended arpeggio from Kurt Rosenwinkel. So I'm not saying you shouldn't work on that stuff, because I love that stuff too. I love learning that kind of stuff. But what I find with some students is that they're lacking that foundation. This book can provide you with that. It's a very good, I think, book for if you're already a strong comper and you've been playing jazz for many years. There might not be that much new stuff in this book, right? But if you think, maybe you feel like, yeah, my jazz comping is lacking a little bit of solid foundation, this is an excellent book to work on. Plus, no tabs, so you have to learn how to read chords. If you can't do that, that's an excellent opportunity to work on that, because that's a good skill to have, to be able to read chords like that. It's not that hard. Once you get to know these shapes, you can recognize them pretty quickly, right? So Barry Galbraith, if you follow my channel, you know that I've been playing some of his arrangements from another book, and there's a whole bunch of books by him, and they're not hard to find because Jamie Aebersold is such a huge publishing company. Comes with a CD, funny enough, and I'm really enjoying playing this, because when we're practicing, you know, it's easy to get trapped into the, oh my god, I have to get all the stuff I'm working on, all the scales and new arpeggios and triad pairings and pentatonic concepts. I want to get all that stuff into my playing, but it doesn't really work like that. If you can just, again, like, set all that aside and just play a tune. Right? Then that's fun. It's fun to do that, and it gives you a different, a fresh approach when you get stuck in the kind of complexity of things. So I'm enjoying this book very much, and I hope, or I think you can too. So yeah, that was my lesson on guitar comping by Barry Galbraith. I hope you enjoyed that, and I shall see you next time.